The order made no sense. The sailors thought they had misheard. Sink the ships, not the enemy's ships, their own. Dozens of them. Around them, an entire fleet waited. Weathered vessels that had spent years crossing the ocean. Ships that had survived storms, wars, and endless months at sea. Now, they were about to be sacrificed on purpose. The mission sounded unbelievable. Take the ships, fill them with stone, sail them into enemy waters, and deliberately send them to the bottom of the sea. No great naval battle, no exchange of cannon fire, no glorious victory at sea. Just an entire fleet disappearing beneath the waves. And yet, commanders believed this strange idea could help win a war. Days later, the ships approached one of the most important harbors in America. If the plan succeeded, the harbor could be blocked, enemy supplies could be disrupted, and the course of the war itself might change. The stakes were enormous. Everything depended on whether this unusual strategy would work. Then came the moment. Crews prepared to abandon their vessels. Water would soon rush through the hulls. One by one, dozens of ships would vanish beneath the surface forever. But nobody knew if the sacrifice would achieve its purpose. What happened next became one of the strangest military operations in history. An operation where victory depended on destroying your own fleet. A plan so unusual that many believed it was madness. Yet sometimes, the strangest ideas become the most unforgettable. And this story was only beginning. The American Civil War was raging. Across the South, Confederate ports kept the war alive. Weapons arrived, supplies arrived, money flowed in from overseas, and few ports were more important than Charleston Harbor. For the Union, that was a serious problem. As long as Charleston remained open, the Confederacy could continue fighting. The harbor had to be closed, but that was easier said than done. Charleston was heavily defended, cannons guarded the entrance, fortifications lined the coastline. Any direct assault would be dangerous, costly, and uncertain. Union commanders needed another solution. Then someone proposed an unusual idea, a strange idea, an idea that sounded more like a joke than a military strategy. If they couldn't capture the harbor, why not block it completely? The proposal was surprisingly simple. Purchase old ships, fill them with stone, sail them into the harbor entrance, and deliberately sink them. The wrecks would block the channel, enemy ships would be trapped, the port would become useless. At least, that was the theory. Soon, dozens of aging ships were purchased. Many had spent years crossing dangerous oceans. Others had once hunted whales in distant waters. Now they had one final purpose: to die. Workers filled the vessels with stone. Ton after ton was loaded aboard until the ship sat heavily in the water. Everything was being prepared for a one-way journey, because once they reached Charleston, there would be no return. Finally, the fleet was ready. One by one, the ships left port and headed south. Their destination was Charleston Harbor, and every sailor aboard understood the truth. The ships would arrive, but they would never sail home. As the fleet moved closer to its target, the plan appeared brilliant, simple, cheap, and potentially devastating. But there was one problem. The ocean does not always obey human plans. Currents change, storms interfere, water moves in ways no commander can fully control, and soon that problem would threaten the entire mission. Days later, Charleston Harbor finally appeared on the horizon. The crews moved into position. The stone-filled vessels were ready. The sailors prepared themselves for the final step, and within moments, they would begin sinking their own. Days later, the fleet reached Charleston Harbor. The mission was entering its final stage. Ahead lay one of the most important ports in the Confederacy. Behind them, there was no turning back. The weather was rough, the sea was unpredictable, and some commanders were beginning to worry. If the ships sank in the wrong places, the entire operation could fail. Then the order was given: abandon ship. One by one, sailors climbed into small boats and left their vessels behind. Some watched in silence. Others could hardly believe what they were doing. They had spent years sailing these ships. Now they were leaving them to die. Then workers opened the hulls. Water rushed inside. The ships began to sink, slowly, silently, inevitably. Throughout the night, more vessels followed, one after another. The harbour entrance gradually filled with wrecks. The operation appeared to be working exactly as planned. By morning, dozens of ships rested on the bottom of the harbour. Thousands of tons of stone now occupied the channel. The strangest military order had finally been carried out, but one important question remained. Did it actually work? At first, many believed the answer was yes. The harbour looked blocked. Newspapers praised the operation. Officials celebrated the mission. Victory seemed within reach. Then reality arrived. Ocean currents shifted, storms moved the wrecks, and several channels remained open. Ships could still pass through parts of the harbour. The blockade was far from perfect. Historians still debate the operation today. Some consider it a failure. Others argue it helped strengthen the Union blockade. But almost everyone agrees on one thing: the order itself was extraordinary. Because in a war remembered for battles, cannons, and massive armies, very few commanders ever attempted something so unusual. To stop the enemy, they deliberately destroyed their own fleet. It sounded absurd. It seemed impossible. Yet it truly happened. And that is why history still remembers it today as one of the strangest military orders ever given.